Hello, everyone. My name is Caitlin Moore. I'm the Financial Literacy Manager here at Union Bank and Trust. And this is week 1 of 4 in the budget series for community corrections. So today we're going to be talking about a number of things, including how to budget, what should be in a budget, various things like that. We'll expand on these each week. So there will be 4 videos available. And my contact is always at the end. So feel free to contact me at any time if you do have questions. Let's get started. Let's start with what is a budget. I'm not going to read all this, but the first line is really what a budget is. It's a financial plan for a specific period of time. So we're talking about a plan on how to spend money or even how much we're receiving in a specific amount of time. For the sake of this presentation, I'm going to talk in months because most of our bills, our basic bills like our rent or our mortgage or utilities are done on a monthly basis. Now, I understand there are bills that are due maybe twice a month, every 6 months, every year, but we're going to talk about a month plan. Whatever works for you, though, when you're building a budget is best. So if you find that a month is too much, then you can narrow that down to every other week or every week, whatever suits you. That's what's going to work best. Why is it important to budget? Well, nearly 2 out of 3 Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And to live paycheck to paycheck, what that means is by the time you get paid, again, all the money from the previous paycheck is gone. So you're spending everything that you have. Now, that's not a bad place to be. It really isn't, as long as it's enough. But if it's not enough and we're having to dig into savings or credit card and go into debt, then we have a little bit of a problem. But oftentimes, what I'm finding is if you build a healthy budget, then you won't be living paycheck to paycheck. You have a grip on kind of what's coming and going, when it's coming and going, and possibly get some savings there involved. And the next one involves savings. 40% of Americans could not cover a $400 emergency today. I've heard this statistic much higher, more like 60%. So we'll just go with 50% of Americans could not cover a $400 emergency, which means here in Nebraska, winter's coming up, and oftentimes we have car troubles in the winter because of our roads and ice and snow. So if there was a $400 emergency, like say new tires are needed, 50% of us could not cover that without going into debt, borrowing the money, using a credit card. And then the APA reports that money remains the number one stressor for 72% of Americans. So if we really boil down why we're stressed, we would find that it is money related. There are effects on your body and your mood and your behavior when it comes to stress. And if 72% of us are stressed about money, then we can say that money is causing these ailments. So let's talk about them. So on our body, we might experience headache, muscle tension, stomach upset, sleep problems. I know for me, when I'm stressed, sleep problems are usually what happen. On my mood, because of the sleep problems, anxiety, restlessness, lack of motivation, sadness, depression. I'm an anxious person by nature. Usually when I'm anxious, I can't sleep because I'm just kind of hyped up on adrenaline. And then on my behavior, overeating, undereating, anger outbursts, social withdrawal. For me, it's social withdrawal. When it comes to money, if I'm stressed about money, I socially withdraw because being in social settings usually costs money. So typically, when people cope like that, they're going to withdraw from where they can't afford to be. So that might be socially, but then isolating like that isn't healthy either. So then it could cause effects on the mood and then on the body. So as you can see, if you really just kind of go back and forth on this list, our behavior might come first and then effects on our body might come second, or our mood might change and it affects our behavior, things like that. But it's all stress related. And so if we can get a handle on one of the stressors in our life, which happens to be one of the biggest stressors for most people, then maybe we won't experience this as much. Or when we do experience the anxiety and the sleep problems, we'll know, hey, I should probably check on that budget. Let's see what's going on there. So let's talk about budgeting basics. Really, when you're building a budget, it comes down to 2 things. We want to look at our income, what's coming in, and then what's going out, our expenditures. And you need 2 lists to do that. So you need a list of your income and you need a list of your expenses. And we're going to go through the process of how to do that. Once we have those lists, you want to understand completely where your money is coming from. It's always healthy to know if you don't have just one source of income, what is the income coming in and where is it coming from? Because if one of those things changes or drops off, we need to know how to change our budget effectively. And then when it comes to budget building, making adjustments is a constant thing. On average, it takes a person about 3 months to build a successful budget, but there's always going to be changes. There's always going to be things that we remember or we're adding to our budget, or we think, I need more savings in this. Like I'm a big fan of saving all year round for Christmas gifts and birthday gifts. And so maybe something comes up later in the year where you have to adjust your budget to save a little bit more if that's the direction you're going to. So making adjustments is not a bad thing. And just know that in the beginning, when you are building a budget, it might be that you are making a lot of adjustments and it can be frustrating. I get that. But just know if you feel like you're failing or if you feel like you're frustrated, you're actually doing a really great job, because that means you are working the budget, you are making changes and adjustments and thinking through, where does my money come from and where is it going? So there's 3 steps to building a healthy budget. One is writing down all of your income. Like I said, we need to know everywhere it's coming from. So if you have multiple sources of income, you need to write those down on their own line. So grab a piece of paper, use the worksheets I have available to you on our website, and write down all of your income. So you can have 3 jobs, you could have 1, maybe you're receiving SSI, disability, alimony, child support. There's various ways to have income, but we need to know what all of those are. And then how much you are earning with that income. The next step is to write down all of your expenses. Now, this is going to get hard because it's pretty easy to write down our bills, our utilities, our phone bill, insurance, things like that. But we spend money consistently on things that we don't think about. It's just second nature. And all of those things need to go in there. So if you spend money on coffee every day or something for your children, if you eat out a lot, anything you're spending money on, you need to put it on the budget. You can categorize this. You can kind of group things up a little bit. I have a budget line for entertainment. So this would mean if me and my son go out to the movies or go to a state park, that's entertainment. You're buying a pass somewhere. So I have a budget for that. I don't have to put like zoo pass or park pass, anything like that. I just group it together. But I do need to know what I'm spending money on in order to group it in there. Monthly bills, weekly bills, those are typically remembered, but annually we need to start thinking through what we're spending our money on. A lot of people forget their car registration. It comes up once a year. It's something we forget about, but it's usually hundreds of dollars. And if you're not proactively saving for this, which is thinking ahead, and you're going to have to figure out where to come up with all of this money. We are going to be talking about proactive budgeting. So keep an eye out for that, because that'll teach you how to look ahead and then save for things now, a little bit at a time. So with your car insurance, if it costs $350 and it's going to take 12 months until you have to pay it again, you just split 350 by 12 months, and that's how much you're saving per month. You put it away, and then when the bill comes, you're ready to go. It's really great to look ahead at those things. So if we think about our kids, what are some sports fees that we may have to pay? Do they have annual expenses anywhere? School supplies and school clothes, or at Christmas time, those are big expenses. So if there's any other expenses during the year that you have to pay, we need to look ahead and put that in the budget for a monthly savings. And then the third part of a budget is comparing those. Do you make enough to pay for your lifestyle? That is the ultimate question. We want to make sure that you are at least breaking even paycheck to paycheck. But if you can live below your means, that's awesome. I think that's the American dream. And we're going to get to that in a couple slides here. But we need to know the reality-based situation for you. Does your income match your expenses, or does your expenses match your income? What we do with that will come later if we're not there, if we're spending too much money, things like that. But your first assignment is to build a reality-based budget of what is actually happening. Regardless of whether you're overspending or not, you need the reality check of, this is what's happening in my budget. This is what's happening on a month-to-month basis, because then we can go in there and adjust a couple of things. And there's some key areas where people can adjust pretty successfully without changing their lifestyle. When you're building your budget, after we've had this reality-based budget, you might make changes every week or every month, and that's okay. Like I said before, it just means that you're thinking through, maybe you're adding some things, you get a new car and then we have a new payment, things like that. If you have inconsistent income, I know this is a question I get a lot. If you don't make the same amount of money every paycheck, I completely get that. So let's take a server in a restaurant, for example. They get an hourly wage, which is small, or they're promised to, up to 20 hours, but maybe they work more, maybe they work less. What is the minimum amount of money that you can expect to come in every single paycheck? That's what you want to budget off of when it comes to inconsistent budgeting. So if you were promised 20 hours a week, that's your budget, is 20 hours a week. Now, if you make more, we could put that extra money somewhere, whether it's savings, pay something off faster, kind of get ahead in some areas, put away for that car registration so you don't even have to save monthly, something like that. But inconsistent income is, you need to plan on the smallest amount of money that you will be bringing home. Moving on. In the long-term sense of budgeting, which is not why we're here, but one of the things we want to do is build an emergency fund. Once we have a budget and see where we're at, we want to start building up an emergency fund. Emergency fund is usually around $1,000 or less. It's whatever you find is the most that you might need in the event of an emergency. So for me, I look at my car insurance deductible. It's $1,000. It's $1,000 because my premiums are lower that way. So the goal of an emergency fund is to save $1,000, put it away somewhere within reach, but not in your bank account. Open up a separate bank account, a separate savings account, but you don't want it within reach. It needs to be there, but you forget about it. But I know that if I were to get in a car accident today, that $1,000 is covered. I've got it covered. It's ready to go. Some people, it's that $400, that statistic that most 50% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. Usually that's, tires for your car or a new windshield, something like that. But I would suggest looking at your deductibles. What is the amount that you would need in the case of an accident or something like that, and save that up. We want to do that right away and as fast as we can. For some people, it's very difficult to save up an emergency fund, but let me tell you, once you do it, the relief that comes with knowing if there's an emergency, you've got it covered is huge. After we have built up an emergency fund, we're going to pay off debt. We're going to figure out how much we owe. In the meantime, we're paying our minimum payments for our debt, but we want to start paying off debt. And if you have debt and you need help coming up with a plan to pay that off, please let me know. I do financial coaching and I am happy to build a debt payoff plan for you based off your budget that you'll need to have, or we can work on, and after you've built up an emergency savings. But we can definitely figure out a payoff plan, and I can help you maybe even get some of that debt eliminated. Typically, it depends on what it is. After we've paid off our debt, then we build up an emergency savings equal to 3 to 6 months of income that can cover needs. So it's not your total income, it's what you would need to save to pay all of your bills for 3 to 6 months. We saw this last year in the pandemic, that a lot of people were furloughed or lost their jobs, but if they didn't have savings, they didn't have a way to pay their bills. This emergency savings, though it's bigger and it might be thousands and thousands of dollars, would give you a chance to find a new job in the event that you lost yours. So saving up 3 to 6 months may take a lot of work. It may take several months or even several years to save, and that's okay. But the whole goal is to have enough in your account to cover basic expenses for 3 to 6 months in the event that you lost your job. After we've done that, so we have a pretty significant savings at that point, we don't have any debt, then we're going to consult qualified professionals on other matters like investments or wealth management, things like that. And we're also going to save for retirement, kids' education, other major items. So long-term budgeting, it is long-term. You're constantly budgeting until, retirement. And even then it's a very good thing to have a healthy budget in retirement when you're on a fixed income. So all of these things may take a lifetime to work through, and that's okay. That's the whole goal. But we always want to be actively working our budget and making sure that we have enough money coming in. We've got our savings in the event of emergencies and things like that. But we are only going to be talking about our basic budget. So this was just to give you kind of an opportunity to look ahead and see what this really looks like long-term. So let's talk about how to budget. Now, I have a lot of tools and I'll show you those tools to help you along the way. So don't get too worried about how to budget. It's a very actually easy process once we've done it. And there's a lot of resources out there that make it easier for you to maintain it over the course of a year. This guide right here is really kind of a universal guide that a lot of big gurus use. I know we use it a lot at UBT. And this is just the suggested budget percentages. So we have 100% of our income that we're working with. How do we allocate it? A lot of people will suggest in these ranges. So if we look at housing, 20 to 28%, that's suggesting that you shouldn't spend any more than 20 to 28% on your housing. And a lot of landlords look at this, mortgage companies look at this. They take your income and say, can they afford around 30% or less? And they may not even approve you for rent or a mortgage if it's over 30% of your income. So these are kind of guidelines that a lot of banks use and things like that. Transportation's the same thing, 10 to 15%. So your car payment shouldn't equal more than 10 to 15% of your income. And the reason for this is because there's other things that we need to spend money on: utilities, food, savings, debt. Even if you look at the debt, we shouldn't have that much debt. Entertainment. These are all reality-based budgetary items. These are things that we all deal with, and we all should have money to utilize. So it's not a perfect guide. Some people go over in housing and under in transportation, things like that. It's okay to work the system to make it your own, but this is just a suggested guide that I know that a lot of people in the financial world will utilize. Okay, so the how-to of building a budget. First of all, just write down all of your income. Grab a piece of paper, grab the worksheets we provide at UBT, write down all of your income. If you have multiple sources of income, each line needs to be its own source. So I have suggested on my worksheets some areas that people receive income. If you need to add more, or if you can't fill them all out, that's totally okay. Some people only have one source of income, and that's okay too. But we want to know exactly where your money is coming from and how much. And then step 2 is you're going to write down all of your expenses. This is the hard part. It may take a month or 2 to figure this out. That is okay, but everything needs its own line. Consider your expenses that are weekly, biweekly, monthly, or yearly. So we're really going to write down a lot. I mean, you're going to have to write down a lot. Some people go back a couple months when they're doing this for the first time. They go, okay, what did I spend my money on for the past couple months? And they'll write it down from there. So we're talking about gas for your car, your utilities, food, so groceries and eating out, everything you spend on for your kids or yourself, even if you get your nails done or your haircut, everything needs to be written down so we know how to categorize things and budget for that. We need to make sure that what we're bringing in can pay for that lifestyle, but also in the future, how do we stay within a certain range of money in order to afford that lifestyle? So everything needs to be written down. Number 3, did you consider everything? Like I said, it takes about 3 months to do this well. So constantly think and add or subtract from your budget, whatever you need to do to make that look like a reality-based budget. And number 4, once you know your income and you know what your expenses are, we're going to have 2 grand numbers. How much do I bring in? And we're talking net. That's what you bring home. And then your expenses. So you're going to have a big number on how much are you spending every month. And we're going to compare those. We want to know where we're at. We want to know if it's, if we're breaking even, if we have extra at the end of the month, or if we're dipping into savings or using credit cards to work our lifestyle. Any extra dollars that you have, if you do make more money than you're spending, should go into savings to pay off debt, things like that. If you don't earn enough to pay your expenses, we need to figure out what to do next, which is making adjustments to your budget. Where are you spending too much money? Where can you cut back? A lot of times utilities is not where you can cut back. Sure, we could turn off the water when we're brushing our teeth or turning off lights when we leave a room, but it doesn't make a significant amount of difference to the point where we are saving hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. But we could look at areas like eating out. Are we spending too much here? Do we have too many hobbies that are costing too much money? Can you make that hobby work, but maybe not do it as much or go on days where it's less expensive? There are absolutely areas in a budget that can be cut back without changing your lifestyle. And my goal is not to change your lifestyle, to tell you, no, you can't do this. It's to make it work within your financial means. With inconsistent income, like I said, you're going to start with the lowest monthly income that you can expect. If you were promised 20 hours a week, that's what your budget is going to be. Anything extra goes to savings or debt payoff. Extra income should go towards the wants, which we'll talk about needs versus wants. But we're going to account for the lowest amount of money. So here we are. This might be really small on your screen, but here's one of the worksheets I provide, which is your income worksheet. So we have job 1, 2, child support, alimony, SSI, bonuses, or incentives. So if you get those, even on a yearly basis, write that down because we can budget for that. Any other expenses that you have, please write them down. And then at the bottom, we're going to have a total amount of net income, what we bring home. The next one is our expenses. So as you can see, there's a lot of things on there. It might be really small on your screen, but we're looking at debt. So I've listed all this type of debt: credit cards, loans, medical debt. Do you owe money to friends and family? A bank loan. We have home, rent, mortgage, property taxes, HOA, repairs, anything you're writing a check for or paying for on a monthly basis is in there. Utilities, we know what those are: transportation, gas, car payments, car insurance, registration. If you take the bus, we got to account for bus fees. If you have to park every day for work, we want to account for those fees too. Clothing, clothing's a big one, especially here in the Midwest. Sometimes we spend a lot more on warm clothes, and then in the summer we spend a bunch of money on really cool clothes. So our clothing budget could really, toggle back and forth. But if we're budgeting on a monthly basis for, say, $50, $100 a month, maybe we don't use it that month and we could carry it over to the next. That's really the goal. The top of the second column is food. So groceries and dining out. Those are two different things. Please do not put food all as one. We need to decipher how much we're spending on groceries and how much we're eating out, because if money gets tight, eating out is usually the first thing to go. That is way more money. We have to eat. We do, but we don't have to eat out. So we have to account for groceries, and then dining out is separate. Insurance, car, homeowners, life, medical. A lot of times that stuff's already taken out of your check, and that's fine. So if you can't fill out that line, it's totally fine, because we're talking about net income, what you're bringing home. So for example, I pay my life insurance, medical insurance already through my check. My homeowner's insurance is rolled into my mortgage. So that's not something I'll fill out. The only thing I'll fill out in this column or this category is my car insurance. If you have pets, we need to account for food, medicine, vaccines or shot, grooming, boarding. Some of those things are not a weekly expense. They might be an annual one. Child expenses, baby expenses, childcare, extracurriculars. If you need to add more lines on there, if you have multiple kids and they cost a little bit different each month, maybe based off some needs, have their own category. Get specific. I have one child and he's 3. And so we buy a lot of clothes because he grows like a weed. He's still in pull-ups. So we're still buying those type of things. So I definitely budget for those things every month to know that I have to work within this amount of money to make everything work. And then entertainment, gifts, hobbies, gym. Do you smoke? Babysitting, vacation, giving, all those things are kind of the extra. Now this category could be huge. Hobbies, if you're a golfer, but you also play something else, you may want to split that up. How much are you spending on golf versus the other extracurricular? But just really think about what you're spending your money on. Go back to your bank statement, look where you have spent money and write all that down. And the last category is overdue bills. So if you are just trying to come current on your bills, we need to know that. We need to put that in there because we want to try to tackle that immediately, but we need to make sure that that is in our budget so we're not getting any more behind. So this is a pretty comprehensive list that you probably spend money in almost every category or every line. If you don't, it's fine, but this is up to you to work. If you want to make your own list, that's completely fine. If you want to use this as an easier guide, we do have it available for you for free. You can contact me or it is on our website. And then we're going to compare our expenses. I talked about this a little bit earlier. Are you at least breaking even? Are you bringing in enough money to pay for your lifestyle? Are you coming out ahead with your income? Are you making more money than your income? Are you making more money than your expenses? Or are you not even doing that? Are you not even breaking even? Are you spending more than your expenses? We need to know this because if you are in the negative every month, we need to know, first of all, where are you getting the money to cover those expenses? And then what can we cut back on? Doesn't mean we have to get rid of our things in our lifestyle, but what can we cut back on in order to at least break even? There are some great resources out there to help with budgeting. I'm a big fan that at the beginning you do pen to paper. You write all this down. Psychologically, it is very healthy. We work through things a little bit easier when we do pen to paper. But once you have figured out your budget, how does this work? Am I at least breaking even? Am I able to save? Am I able to pay off some debt? Then we can move it all to an online app. I'm a big fan of Every Dollar. All of the apps out there usually have a free component to it, but also a paid component where you can pay for them to tap into your bank account and they'll do the budgeting for you. You still have to put in there how much you want to spend for each category, but at the end of the month, it'll draw it all in. I'm not a fan of paying for it. You should be able to do this on your own. I've never paid for the paid component of an app because if you do your budget right, it should be easy. You should know it. It's your budget. You don't need extra help to get through it. So what these apps do is you'd carry over that written budget onto the app. So every category that you want to budget for and the amount that you want to spend. It also has an area for you to put in your income. You can keep every line or you can just put in one giant number. I would highly suggest the every line, every source of income, simply because if that changes, you can go in there and change it. So once you have done that, then there's another component of the app that every time you go and spend, you can record your expenditure in the right category. So if I go to the store and I buy $50 worth of clothes for my son, I can go into his category under clothing and write down $50, $50.54, whatever that is. And so the app is telling me you budgeted $100 and now you have this much left. So that next time I go to the store, I can consult my list and go, okay, I got to stay within $49 now because I spent $50.54. So it's really great to be able to do that because you could do it on demand. Also, these apps will carry over your budget every month. So for me, I have a budget. I have every line item accounted for to say I'm only going to spend within this range because I only make this much money and it all works. But if, say, there's a month where there's a third paycheck or there's a bonus or I take on a side hustle, something like that, I can go in there and change things. Or if there is an expense, maybe I pay off a debt, I can take it out, but I'm not reworking the entire thing. I'm just carrying over what I had inputted last month and then making changes as necessary. So like I said, it gets really easy with these apps. The hard work is the initial budget and then putting it on the app, and then it's easy from there. So if you are building a budget, I would suggest try a couple apps, try a couple ways of doing it. They all essentially do the same thing, but sometimes design and aesthetic makes a huge difference on whether you're willing to open up the app. So try a few of them and see which one you like. There's a lot out there, more than the 3 that I put on here, but these are the 3 most popular ones that I have found. And find one that works for you. And then I get some frequent question and answers that I want to talk about, which are, if you don't have a job, should I still budget? Absolutely. If you don't have a job, then you're probably on a very strict income. And so you need to keep your budget pretty strict. So it's going to be very, very wise for you to build a budget and stay within that. I have inconsistent income. Should I still budget? Absolutely. We talked about this. Accounting for the lowest amount of money that you know you're going to bring in is going to be great because then you know this is how much I'm going to have at minimum. But then if you bring in more, then you could look at your budget and say, oh, I'm still saving for my car registration. I should put this money away. Or, I wasn't going to be able to pay all my bills this month, so I'm going to apply it to some of these bills. So you could use those extra funds that you're making and make some really wise decisions because you have your budget already laid out for you. I'm not the main money maker in the family. Should I still budget? Absolutely. If you have a dual income in your family, great. Put the budget together. If you kind of guide your own expenses, make your own budget, it's still relevant to know if you have an income, where your money's going. I'm only in high school. Should I budget now? Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of youth starting a budget right away in their beginning working years. Make it a habit. Make it a habit to know what's coming in, what's going out, and it will only carry over. It will only get better, and you can build that budget from day one. So I would highly suggest it. And I would always suggest as a parent to other parents to teach your children to budget from a young age. Teach them how to manage money from a young age, because it becomes a natural tendency. It's second nature. So by the time they are working for the first time as a student, then they know how to budget and they know how to stay within their means. And then I don't have very many bills and I make more than I spend. Should I still budget? Absolutely. Even if you make far more money than you're actually spending, you need to know where your money is coming and going. I'm a big fan of taking control over your money, to have control over your money so that your money doesn't control you. And part of that process is building a budget. If I know how much money I make and how much money I spend, I have the power over my budget. If I'm going into bill paying blindly every month because I have no idea how much is in my account and I have no idea if I'm going to be able to spend the money that I need to, then that money has the power over me. So regardless of your income, whether it's high or low, have a budget, because then you get the power. If you have questions about this, feel free to reach out to me, but we're going to go right into needs versus wants. So this is the idea of what should be in your budget versus what we want in our budget. So let's talk about what that is. So what is a need? So within our budget, in the frame of our budget, we need 4 essential things. We need food, we need shelter, transportation, and utilities. Okay. We have to eat. We don't have to eat out, but we have to eat. So our grocery budget should be on point. We should always account for groceries. And if anything changes or needs to change in our budget, it's usually not the grocery budget. Shelter, whatever shelter looks like for you, we need a roof over our head. We need to be safe at night. So whether you're renting or you own a home or you live with friends or you live in a shelter, whatever that looks like, we need to account for that in our budget. So whatever the payment is, we have to have that. It's not an option to not pay our rent. It's not an option to not have a safe place to sleep. And so whatever we need to do to make sure that happens, then we need to make sure that's in our budget. Transportation. Transportation looks different for everyone. It could be a bus pass or a new bike or Uber every day. It could be a car that you own, but you don't have payments. It could be a car that you're making payments on. Whatever transportation looks like for you is what we need to budget, because we need to get to work to pay our bills, or we need to get to school. We need to do life. So whatever transportation looks like for you, budget that. I worked with a client one time that rode his bike to work, and that was fine, but he needed a new one. So we put that in our budget to start saving for a new bike. But that was his mode of transportation, and that would not change if money got tight. We were still going to plan for transportation. And then utilities, gas, electricity. We got to keep the lights on. We got to have air conditioning going. We got to have a heater in the winter. We got to have water running. So these are non-negotiables. Your needs are non-negotiable, period. When money is tight, these don't change. We are still making payments. We are still saving. We have to be able to have food, shelter, transportation, and utilities. These do not change. Now, on the flip side, there are plenty of things in your budget that don't have to be there. They can be there, but they do not have to. So concerts or entertainment, new pets. Now, when we're making our budget, we're going to account for the pets we have. We are not going to account for the pets we don't have. If you want a new pet, but you can't afford your budget, you can't afford your lifestyle, a new pet should not be an option. Eating out, like I said, we got to eat, but we don't have to eat out. Movies or sporting events, new clothes. Now we need clothes. I get that, especially if you work in an industry that you have to have a uniform or dress a certain way. I get that, but we don't have to have new clothes all the time. So if you have to have certain shoes for work or a certain uniform, then absolutely that's a non-negotiable. But new clothes, just going to the mall and just shopping around, that may not be an option. When it comes to budgeting, your needs should always take priority over your wants. Those needs, the things that we have to survive, those things should be in your budget. They should be the priority. Your wants are never a priority. They absolutely can be met. We can get our wants in our budget. Most of your budget is going to be a want. They're things that we don't have to have, but you pay for it anyway. But when money gets tight, your needs should always be paid, but your wants come second. If you list your needs first and your wants second, that might be a really good way to budget. I tell folks when I work with them, write out your budget. We're just going to do the reality-based budget. And then we're going to do a little N or a W next to each of the line. We're going to figure out what's a need and what's a want. These are the things that we can live without versus the ones that we can't. It's a good practice to do that with your children to help them realize not everything on your list is necessary. Doesn't mean you can't have it. It just means that if you can't afford it, then you can't have it. And then we can, once we figure out what our needs versus wants are, then maybe we can go in there and eliminate or downsize the amount of money that we're budgeting for those. I do have these in worksheet form just as a good reminder, especially when you're making your budget for the first time, what a need is versus a want. So food, shelter, utilities, transportation, we talked about that. Essential clothing. So these are work-related clothing. A phone. We need phones. We don't need a new phone, but we need a phone. So we're going to put, that's a need in our budget. Insurance for the transportation. Absolutely. We need gas to put in our car. We need to be paying on our debt. If you're not paying it off, that's okay, but we need to make our minimum payments. That is a need. And then car maintenance. We have to keep the oil change. We got to keep new tires on. So I'm a big fan of proactively planning for car maintenance because it is part of the transportation category. So car maintenance may just be saving $20, $30 a month so that we always have money available for little things. But in your emergency fund, it should be there once we're able to save for that, just in case there is an accident or you need new tires quickly. But if you have car maintenance money, then you don't have to dip into your emergency fund. A want, eating out, entertainment, new pets, cable. If you have cable still, you are paying too much. Hulu and Netflix are still a want, but to downsize from cable to Hulu and Netflix or some of the streaming services may save you a ton of money. I'm a mom, so I understand how important it is to be able to put some TV on sometime. I have Hulu and Netflix, but I don't have cable. So that's how I save a little money. Clubs and sports are also a want. Vacations, gifts, a new phone, for example. So there's plenty of things on your list that are a want. This is not an exclusive list, but this is just an example to help you understand a little bit better. So how can I get my wants? So we have our budget. Maybe we're tight on cash and we have to take some of our wants out. Well, we may not have to take them out. And that's kind of the key. Is my job is not to say you can't do something. It's to say, can you afford to do it? Can we cut back so that you can do it, but maybe not as frequently? So ask yourself a couple questions. Do I have money in my budget for it? If you do, great. Put everything you want in your budget. Anything you want, it's your money. You get to do what you want. But if you can't afford it, maybe ask yourself, can I buy it cheaper somewhere else? So this comes into play of knowing your store sales. When do stores change their sale days? So if I want a better TV right now, bigger, better TV now, can I wait until Sunday when a lot of the big box stores have their sales? Could I wait until the holiday season when a lot of things are a little less expensive? So do I need it right now? So a want may not be something you need right now. And it's also not something that you have to get right now. So if you hang it tight, can you get it somewhere cheaper? And that's a way to still include our want, but we're just going to hold off a little bit longer. If I wait, will it become less expensive? And most importantly, can I live without it? Does this want need to be in my budget? Maybe not. Maybe you can just completely eliminate it from your lifestyle. Maybe you eliminate it to the point where you have it once a month. So I'm a big fan of coffee. Coffee is not a need. It's completely a want. I can make coffee at home and it's a lot less expensive. Sure, it's going to go in my grocery budget, but I have a good coffee maker and that's fine. I love going out to coffee. I really do. I love the experience of it. I like to try new places. But when it comes to my budget, I can cut back on that. So that's a want in my budget. I do budget for it. But if money is going to be tight one month, then maybe I just lessen the amount that I'm budgeting for that. So maybe I don't get coffee every day or every other day, but I get it twice a week or once a week, whatever that is going to do to my budget, then I'm going to honor that because I don't have the money to do it otherwise. So if I can live without it, yes, I can live without coffee. I can live without going out to coffee. Absolutely. If I feel I can't live without it, it's going to go in my grocery budget and I'm just going to have coffee at home. But the experience is what I like. And so I want to make sure that it's in there, but maybe I don't get to go as much. When budgeting, reference the budget you've already created, evaluate your needs versus wants. So do the N and the W, figure out what is a need, what is a want. Are some of your needs actually wants? This is a good time to sit back and go, I said it's a need, but is it like cable or Hulu? Those are not necessarily needs. Sure, we feel like we need it, especially if we have kids or we enjoy sports, but do we need it? No, not if we don't have the money to pay for it. Can you eliminate some of your wants list? Can you just take it out of your budget completely and save some money? Can your needs be decrease? Needs, so your grocery budget or utilities, can it be decreased? Like I said earlier, we could turn off the water when we're brushing our teeth or turn off the lights when we leave a room. That's decreasing that budget. It's not taking it out. It's just saying, I'm going to save money here. Maybe we don't shop at the expensive grocery store, but we go to a big box chain to save money on groceries, or we buy the generic brand instead to save some money. So we still got to eat, but can we decrease the amount that we're spending? And then how can you make your wants list more practical and less expensive? So if you are a big sports fan, maybe in order to get some of those wants things, maybe you don't go to games, but you, because the tickets are expensive, but maybe you go, once a quarter or something like that. Okay, so those are some questions that you should ask yourself when budgeting and looking at your needs versus wants. So that's kind of step 2 in the whole budgeting process. We're going to move on to emergency savings really quick. I did talk about this a little bit, but emergency savings, this is your first big savings step before even paying off debt. We need some sort of fallback in the event something happens. So what I would suggest is look at the co-pays, your deductibles, or small emergencies. What does a small emergency mean to you? For me, it's completely a car accident. That's where my brain goes. I got to pay my deductible. So that's $1,000. So that's my emergency fund. Some people have a $500 deductible. So maybe you just need to save $500. But look at what a small emergency would cost you and then save for that. We want to put that away somewhere else. We talked about deductibles. This is really a great suggestion for saving for your emergency fund. It doesn't mean you can only use it for deductibles, but if I have $1,000 saved up for my deductible and I need new tires and I don't have enough in my car maintenance savings, then I can dip into my emergency fund. So whatever you can save. Save when you can and what you can. That's kind of my little mantra when it comes to savings, is save when you can and what you can. So saving $1,000 may seem like a lot, but every penny counts. So this is why a good solid budget is really important, because even if you have $25 left over at the end of the month, let's put that away in our emergency savings. If we can cut back on a few things, take out some of our wants for a little while, can we save up that $1,000 or that $500? Or if I know I'm going to get a bonus soon, maybe I'll just use that, or a tax return, I'll just use that for my emergency fund. So this is why a budget is super, super important, so that we can figure out how we're going to save up this money. And then once it's saved, you're done. You can stop saving. Now, if you use your emergency fund, then you're going to want to resave that money. So when it comes to your money, so let's say the $1,000, what do? Don't spend it. I have mine actually in an envelope, a sealed envelope in my safe in my house. So it's accessible, but I don't even think about it. So when I open up my bank account, it's not there. I don't know that I have this other $1,000. It's literally there for an emergency. Don't account for the $1,000 or the emergency fund in your budget, and keep it somewhere accessible but separate from your bank account, and only use it for the emergency. And then when you spend it, save it up again. So that's the basics of our budget building today for week 1. There is 3 more weeks after this to kind of build upon this. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. My contact was not in this one, but you can go to ubt.com and search my name and find me, Caitlin Moore, or caitlin.moore@ubt.com. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions, but we will see you next time. Thank you.